Do you enjoy the idea of playing Viking-style games, but don't really enjoy playing in historical settings? Do you really just want to, become a berserker or relive Scandinavian folktales and not be really bound by any sort of normal earthbound geographical elements? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, I have a setting for you. If not, well, I still have a really cool setting that you should sit your ass down and listen about. So the setting is called the Blood Clans of Jorikk, and I say it's really a setting because it is attached to a game, but so very lightly that I've never actually played the game that is attached to, but I've used the setting material quite easily. And that's why this video will not have a system element, because the system is entirely irrelevant to why I really like the Blood Clans of Jorikk. So we'll just jump right into the setting. Now, the setting of Blood Clans of Jorikk, like I said, is very Scandinavian based. It pulls a lot from Scandinavian Eddas and poems and, all sorts of epics that come, out of the Scandinavian region, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. And it really uses all of those elements to try and design a world that is based in the game of Hackmaster's pre-made setting, though, again, I've never dealt with any of it, so I just kind of remove it and treat it as its own individual area, because it's so huge that it's so easy to do that and never, ever, encounter any sort of continuity issues. So, it pulls from all of these elements to create a diverse society that has heavily Scandinavian elements, as well as elements of what can only really be described as a steppe nomadic style tribe, think Mongolia. And it actually all works together to create this single cohesive setting that heavily borrows the ideas of impoverished nations and impoverished people who, scratch out a living from, raiding, from war, from, just barely making it by. And this causes all these people to kind of turn towards these more rough styles of life, including raiding, exploring, warring with each other. I mean, it has all these elements, and the setting utilizes all of this to create this very immersive setting that doesn't ever back you into a corner where you're stuck going, well, I haven't read the book and one of my players has read all the books and he's blasting with lore. It never does that. It never creates that, because the lore sits so lightly and loosely across this Scandinavian setting that you can go, okay, I understand this is how this is, and I understand how this is, and I'm going to run it like this. One of my games I ran, I had one clan start a war with another clan. Now, there's no real indication about that. It sits lightly enough that I was able to find one spark point and go, this is how I'm going to do this. But then I ran another game that had a completely different style to it that never had that, and that polarity never existed. But both of them can exist in the exact same time frame of anywhere in the Blood Clans of Jorikk. And that's one of the reasons I like it, is because I enjoy these ideas of playing these more Viking-based games, but I really kind of get hung up on playing in Scandinavia because it just doesn't jive with me. It's too small in a way for what I want to do, for the stories I want to tell. So this works really well for me to capture all those elements that I really want and tell the story I want in the setting I want without issue. What's also really cool is that the creator of Blood Clans of Jorikk actually decided to kind of go off on a couple of different tangents, for lack of a better term, of how to design, how he was going to do the source books and all of that. So right off the bat, the first one's free, so that's really cool, so that you can begin to get a taste for it. But then the source books after that, they each kind of touch on something unique. There's one that talks about the weather and geography, which is really helpful if you want to know how you really want to have weather play a role in your game. There's another one that talks about various little villages and settlements, which is pretty standard, so nothing super unique there, except he does talk on how taverns would work, which is really interesting. And the fact that taverns in this setting, you don't really, if you rent a room, you're paying a lot for it. Most commonly, you'll just rent a floor space, which is really cool when you think about it, to add that element to the game. There's another one that talks about, it's just an epic. It is pretty much just a short story that a skald would tell, and it's presented as such so that you can use it. There's another one that talks about language, and it's a whole book that also doubles as a dictionary, which is super cool if you really want to begin to immerse your players in this setting and use these sayings and these words. And it's got a full pronunciation guide, which is super handy. There's even a book that talks about the northern markets and how the markets work and how trade and exchange values and, the price of ice bricks and the price of ears and, orc scalps and all of these things. And it really goes together to make this setting really feel interesting and engaging while not ever strangling you. And it also is so system light that I've used it in 3 settings now without issue, and none of them were the official, system. So that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy this. And one of the other things that I really enjoy about this game is actually the art. Now, the art for the Blood Clans of Jorikk is very weird, and I say that in a really good way. It's just, the art is much more of this, I believe it's acrylic style, in that it has this very old feel to it. It's not like parchment, it's not like, medieval Dark Ages paintings. It's just got this more artistic feel. Like, you look at it and you go, okay, I could see something like this style, being somewhere in like an art museum. And this is really interesting because it adds a whole new element to the game in the fact that this art's not these epic scenes and, full robust colors and all of these things. They're very muted, they're very, not simple, that's the wrong term. It's very, the scenes they depict are simple. It's a boat on a lake. It's a family milking a cow. It's wolves running through the forest. It's all of these scenes that, you describe them, you're like, okay, that's different to see in a role-playing game, especially one about Vikings where you'd expect to see, these epic battle scenes. But strangely enough, there's actually very few combat art scenes depicted. And this is, I think, an active effort to make you begin to humanize the characters and humanize the world, so you don't see, Vikings, I just smash things. You begin to see kind of the cultural and societal elements, and the art does a really good job of evoking those emotions and those thoughts, and the imagery plays into the game. Because you can find enough imagery to create, berserking barbarians, but this imagery really goes to kind of give you this more, people are scratching out that living, and the art does a really good job of it. So, ultimately, I recommend this game, this setting, I should say. It's really not a game, it's really a setting, to anyone who has any interest in playing in a Viking Scandinavian style game, because it does such a good job of showing you these various facets and aspects of life without ever strangling you or forcing you into a corner to say, this is the story you have to tell. So, that's what I encourage you to check out. I'll leave a link down to the free one below, as well as a link to more of the stuff. Also, I want to remind you that this Friday, the 3rd of June at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be running a game of Cycle of Sagas, the game I've been developing for 3 years that I hope to release in about the next 18 months. And I'll be running it on Roll20 for Roll20Con. The game will be called the Festival of Aranos. I'll leave a link down below. And premates will be provided. All you have to do is come with a willingness to learn a new system and, just wanting to have fun. So, check out other videos, go learn something new, go check out the Blood Clans of Jorikk, and thanks for watching and keep rolling.